Hello and welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we are going to learn about Peter Ferdinand Drucker, who is one of the major contributors to the theories of administration and by adaptation to the theories of public administration. Peter F Drucker is considered to be the father of modern management. For students of public administration, I must inform that management and administration are largely used as interchangeable words. Some of the main ideas on management are also ideas on administration. And in fact, people say that management administration, some people believe, belong to two different realms. Management deals with private administration, whereas administration per se deals with public administration. But there are many who would dispute this, and therefore, we are trying to look at the ideas of a very, very fascinating, very prolific, and very profound thinker on management and administration, namely Peter Ferdinand Drucker. In this lecture or presentation, we will have three things. First, a little background to his biodata, personal background, his important writings, and major contribution or contributions to ideas or some of the novel ideas he has put forward. Drucker was born in the year 1909 in Vienna, the capital city of Austria. He was heavily influenced by the ideas of Schumpeter and John Maynard Keynes. Drucker considered management as a liberal art. I think contrast this with the opinion of F. W. Taylor, whose contributions you would come across in one of the other lessons. Taylor believed management not only as a science but a true science, whereas Drucker is saying it's not a science but it is a liberal art. What he means is art is something which is achieved, perfection, by practice. Science is something which progresses by knowledge. Now, science is something, a body of crystallized knowledge based on research and so many things. So, there is a big perceptual difference between him and Taylor. One more aspect of his concept of liberal arts is that Drucker has taken a very encyclopedic or interdisciplinary view. He brings in so many subjects into his gamut of writings, and there are disciplines like culture, economics, political science, history, philosophy, psychology, theology, sociology. These are all the varied subjects. I think he achieved mastery in these things and has made contributions to each one of these in some way or the other. The major writings of Drucker are The End of Economic Man, The Practice of Management, Managing for Results, Management and Society, and these are writings in addition to so many others. In fact, his 39 books, as many as 39 of his books, were translated into 36 different languages. Now, the contribution of this man was so prolific, and he was widely acknowledged as a great, great contributor to the world of ideas and practices. And therefore, he was decorated and honored by 25 different universities all over the world by bestowing honorary PhDs. He was a very popular management consultant, educationist, and author. He studied at University of Frankfurt, and some people say that there are two contending perceptions about management. And some people draw a contrast between Frankfurt University and Harvard University in their approaches to management. The Harvard University approach to management is considered to be a pro capitalist one, whereas the Frankfurt School or Frankfurt University's stress is on kind of left wing orientation to management thought. Peter F. Drucker has, in fact, made contributions. He has given wholesome ideas to the body of management literature and literature on public administration by bringing in a new perspective to bear on the management thinking. Peter Drucker was a very eminent management consultant, and he was a consultant to some of the most reputed companies, MNCs in the world, such as General Motors, IBM, Sears, and General Electric. He has put across his ideas on management and administration in a very, very wide canvas. And he brought in the concepts of individual and organization and societies. So, therefore, he was widening his ideas on management by looking at not only the individual perspective, organizational perspective, and more importantly, the societal perspective. He is considered to be one of the most influential thinkers on management and administration in 20th century. He's rightly regarded as the father of modern management. He wanted to establish a balance between short and long term requirements of administration and between the individual and the organizational growth. I think in an organization, it's not only the profit that is important or the service, as in public organizations it is, but the individual within the organization has to be taken care of. I think individual needs are also paramount as much as the needs of the organization or a corporate entity. And he tried to balance between individual liberty and social responsibility. Now, these are some of the ideas which are found reflections in his writings. We come to some specific ideas of Peter F Drucker. He has I think made number of novel contributions to the thinking on management leadership in the context of corporate management as well as public management. And one of the major ideas is about leadership. He says leadership's first job is to take charge of the things energetically, infusing personal energy and also aggregate energy. What he means by aggregate energy is that he has to energize the subordinates also. I think energetic operating at a high level of energy is important to accomplish the task. Leadership is also, according to him, elevating a person's vision and building a personality beyond normal limitations. In fact, there is a writer called Bernard who says that the very purpose of organization is that all individuals, all of us have certain limitations. We have certain physical limitations, biological limitations, even social and psychological limitations. Now, why we need to work together in an organization is to overcome these things. So, this is what Drucker is hinting. A leader has to elevate its vision, and the vision should be going beyond one's own personality. So, one should surmount the personal limitations and craft a vision for the organization or company. Uh, Management is basically creating an environment wherein collective work is facilitated. So, this is what he calls performing giantly. And one more important point he makes is management is basically an art, not a science. And management success requires a crafting of a strategy. So it is a strategic work. And one more point he makes is change is normal. There are ever so many writers on the subject of management and also practitioners of management. They are confused and they feel frustrated if changes are coming, unexpected changes are coming. Peter Drucker says that change is normal. Change you cannot avoid. So therefore, you have to swim with the changes. Sometimes you can forestall changes, but whenever change comes, you have to negotiate the change and craft it and take the change in such a way forward that it will not harm or disrupt the organization. One more important concept of Drucker is the concept of knowledge worker. When he made a mention of this knowledge worker concept was not well recognized. What it means is there is a big change from manual worker to knowledge worker. I think as students you should be aware that the industry that we have is of two kinds. The old economy industry and the new economy industry. The old economy industry are industries that have come immediately after industrial revolution, the manufacturing sector, the mining sector, the steel mills, the cotton mills, the textile mills. These are the old type of industries where manufacturing was basic activity. But today, the new economy, which comprises of ICT, information and communication technology, has resulted in the birth of a new worker. This worker is entirely different, a whole lot different from the old type of worker. Old type of worker was working mostly with the tools and machines. But today's worker has to work on the basis of knowledge. And as a result of knowledge worker, I think we look at the kind of companies we have, IT companies or electronic companies. The lowest level employee is somebody who is a graduate in science or computer science or management. So therefore, the lowest fellow is not an ordinary worker, illiterate, semi-educated worker, but he is somebody who is highly knowledgeable. The whole practice of management has to change. To guide a manual worker, there was a lot of difference in education and accomplishment of a manager and worker in the earlier times. But now that educational gap is closed, there are cases where both of them are equally educated. So therefore, there should be a different way of managing the knowledge worker, and the knowledge worker concept is also something which is, I think, aligned to another concept known as knowledge economy. Now, today the world has witnessed transformation of the economy. There was a feudal economy where land was important. Then came the capitalist economy where money or capital was important. But today we are living in an economy where knowledge is important. Now, to make huge profits or to run organizations, it's not so much the land that is required, nor the capital that is required. You have a lot of virtual organizations. Their organizations are there on computer consoles. But what all matters is real knowledge, and the knowledge worker is the new avatar of worker, and he talks elaborately about this. Yet another and also very important contribution is contribution of management by exception. Management by exception is a concept where he says that the executives should not report each and every all and sundry things to higher ups. Some of the management writers of the classical realm, classical type, said that post-carb, as Luther Gulick would have said, there are 7 distinct functions of every manager. One of the functions is reporting. So every subordinate has to report to his boss. So this is quite obvious. But what he says is there is a lot of wastage of time and stationary effort and all that, reporting all trivial things, not so important things. So here he makes a suggestion that the subordinates have to report only exceptions to the bosses. What exception here means is that now whenever you do something, there is a normal expectation. Say for example, in a manufacturing company, you have to lift 5 tons of coal into the rakes and all. Oh, 5 tons is done, okay, you don't have to report. This is as per rule, as per expectation. No, nothing big to report about it. Don't report such things. So that way you can eliminate a lot of reporting. Maybe 80 to 90% of reporting is, just normally order is given, it is complied with. Don't say you have complied with. You report only if there are exceptions. Exceptions in the sense you are able to do much more than what is required of you. Instead of 5 tons, as in this case, you are able to lift or load some 10 tons of material, which is 100% more. This is something surprising. Maybe the targets were not properly set, the targets were unrealistic. From 5 tons to 10 tons or 5 tons to 2 tons. There's a big difference, big exception. Only report such things that will educate the superiors to know what are all the potentials, to make the targets realistic and to save time of the bosses as well as subordinates from routine reporting. Next important thing is he mentioned that in the times to come, I think one has to remember the point that Peter Drucker was a great visionary. He was a person who made predictions about many things. Of course, may not be all the predictions he made have come true, but most of the predictions he has made have come true. One such thing is the development or dawn of information society. Much before the information society has come, we all talk today we are living in information age and information society. Having information is like having money. People like Bill Gates have built their empires and fortunes on the basis of information and knowledge. So this kind of thing he prophesied quite before it has come. Next important point he made is the growth of Asia. He predicted that Asia will be on the top in the world in the future to come, and this is already proved by the people have been using the word Japanese miracle. Even Chinese miracle is no less. China has made outstanding progress. I think China till recently was the fastest growing economy in the world, and registering such a fast and big rate of growth in such a massive country with a huge population and a huge geographical area and a lot of complex history and all that is not a mean achievement. Uh, Although China is slowing down, and the next Asian nation that is emerging, I think as a patriotic Indian, we should all be happy that now China is replaced by India. India is now perhaps the fastest growing economy, and India is comfortable in the sense that we have a huge Gen Y. Gen Y refers to the people who are in their 20s. These are people who are computer savvy, English literacy is there, and computer savvy. These guys are there in big numbers in India. China's population is also aging, and all the first world nations have aged. And even among the third world nations, major countries are aging because of low population growth. And India, maybe that we could not do population, we could not bring in dramatic, results in population fall like China. But luckily, the advantage for us is that we have a huge youth power. I'm not too sure. Maybe around 40% of the population is young, which is India has the singular distinction of having such a big, huge youth power, and this is the power. I think people say that in times to come, India is going to be the human resource for the entire world. So this is a thing which was long back predicted by Peter Drucker. Uh, and one more thing he contributed is the concept of management by objectives. I was mentioning that Peter Drucker, having been educated at Frankfurt School, Frankfurt University, Frankfurt School is a kind of left-wing school, and this is a pro-worker and pro-employee kind of stance is visible in the writings and preachings of Peter Drucker. In his concept of management by objectives, what he says is that management should not be by bosses. Management should not be by executives. It is not executives sitting on the heads of the subordinates and dictating things. Now, the whole management has to be done by objectives. Objectives should guide action. The real boss in a company should be the objective. What is the objective of the company? So everybody should be subordinate to that objective. Here the real boss is objective, and subordinates are all employees, including the chief executive officers. Another concept of management, another aspect of this concept of management by objectives is joint setting of goals. In companies, there has been a practice of top-down goal setting. What it means is the CEO or the boardroom people say what is the company strategy and what are the targets and all that. They are sent down the line, and everybody has to adjust. They have to break that into some individual component parts and then comply with that. So the lower level fellows were supposed to comply. The higher level fellows were giving the vision, crafting the vision, giving the targets and setting the objectives. He said this is not the way to involve all the people. The lower level fellows are the massive numbers, and unless their energies and ideas and initiatives are integrated into the company's working or organization's working, real lasting progress is not possible. And to do this, the best way he thinks is you involve them in goal setting. In this management by objectives, which is shortened as MBO, the objectives must be first formulated at the lowest level, maybe at the shop floor level, maybe at the level of the worker, lowest employees in the organization. So they will think about I think these are the people who are sitting at the cutting edge. They know what really is happening at the brass tacks of the organization or at the lower levels of the public organization, what is happening in society, what are the currents and cross currents, expectations, changing moods of people. All these people are known to the lowest level fellows. So let them first state the objectives, and they should be progressively integrated. The management has to give little direction, little fine tuning of the goals, but basic goals should be formulated at the lowest level. He says there is a very great advantage of this. Now, the advantage is that the people feel involved. Management by objectives is a participative style of management. Unless everybody has a feeling that is contributing to the organization belongs to him. I think there is a concept called ownership concept. Now, a shopkeeper, if he's the owner of the shop, he will tend to keep the shop open till the consumers are all attended. If there are consumers just before the closing of the shop, I think the fellow will somehow try to satisfy all consumers, then only close the shop. He will not shut the shop till every consumer is attended. Something like that. Employees also, once they give the objectives, once they say, set the direction for the company, they get fully involved. They think this company is mine because the objective is set by me, and I am a perfect partner in this. It's not only the boss who is telling, thrusting some impossible targets on my heads. I am doing myself what is to be done. So this is a very revolutionary concept, and it has changed the functioning of industrial management and organization management. And this is closely related to employee empowerment. So employee empowerment is giving a big role to the employee. So earlier the role was not decision making. Earlier role was decision carrying. Now the employee has to make decisions as well as execute the decisions. So this is the concept of employee empowerment, which is closely related to the concept of management by objectives. And one final contribution. Of course, there are so many things. I think it's very impossible. Perhaps so many books and so much of writing. Very significant thing to remember is he was making contributions for long 70 years, 7 decades. He has been writing books after books and all that, and not ordinary books which are translated into so many, almost all the major languages have translated Peter Drucker's works for the benefit of the people of those countries. And it's perhaps not possible to fathom the full range of ideas of Peter Drucker. But one final thing I would mention and then close. He predicted the death of the blue collar worker. Let me, for the benefit of students, there are two kinds of employees working in an organization: blue collar and white collar. And nowadays, of course, we are also using gold collar workers. And after the information technology has come into field, I don't want to confuse you. Just make a distinction between two types of workers: blue collared workers and white collared workers. Blue collared workers are people who are engaged in manufacturing tasks, handling tools and machines, and they are doing some physical work and all that. And the white collared workers are the supervisory staff and the office staff and the controlling and executive staff. He said that the times to come will be such that the blue collar worker will vanish. This has happened in ICT, information communication technology. Virtually there is no blue collar worker, and there are some implications. I think I would draw attention to those implications. With the end of blue collar worker, the old type of worker with a blue shirt and dark pants and then grease all over his body and all that is going, and there is automation and all that. There is no need for such a manual worker now, and the blue collar workers place is taken away by knowledge worker. This is the world. This is how the world is changing, and these are all very prophetic ideas and visionary ideas of Peter F Drucker. Now, before concluding, let me just make a critical evaluation of Peter F Drucker. Peter F Drucker is a very major contributor to both management theory and to management practice, and by adaptation to the practice of administration. He was a great visionary. He envisaged many things, and I think he prophesied that so many things will happen, and most of the things he prophesied have come true. And in fact, one of the failures of management science or administrative science is that one of the lacunae of all the administrative thinkers was that they were only trying to see the history of administration, and also they were trying to grapple the present conditions and talking to tell us what is the nature of administration, what is the nature of management. But not many people have forayed into the prophecy about how the things are going to shape. No, this is what he has done. This is so he has I think he has had a great imagination in foreseeing many significant developments that are changing the face of the world today. He has humanized management and administration. He has democratized with his, by reducing the unnecessary drudgery of workers, and by involving workers in decision making, and he has democratized management thought, and therefore the label that he is the father of modern management is highly deserving. Peter F Drucker has changed the thinking of modern management, and not only has contributed conceptually by writing books and lecturing and all that, he has left a great impact on the industrial management. He died in 2005, and in the long life he had, I think he was active and contributing to the ideas and practices of management. I think in the entire history of management thought, you don't find any other person, any other parallel who has made a person who has made so many contributions, written so many books, and spent so many novel concepts, and predicted so many things that have really happened. So therefore, I think it's a great education knowing about the ideas of Peter Ferdinand Drucker, duly regarded as the father of modern management. Thank you.